I have to be honest, I am a sort of strange type of car enthusiast, and one of the reasons why is the fact that there is a specific group of vehicle that gets me more excited than your average McLaren or Ferrari, and that is this: cars that make absolutely no sense at all. Cars that make you think, what was the boardroom even talking about when this thing landed on the presentation board? And they all went, yeah, that'll work, that'll sell, and they approved it. Stuff like this, the Toyota Camry TRD. Once upon a time, Toyota decided that they could sell more Camrys if they made a sporty trim level, which honestly isn't completely unheard of, but their execution of this version of a sporty Camry was a little bit strange, both in its design, its name, and its performance envelope overall. Underneath the hood here, you'll find the same exact 3.5 liter V6 engine that develops 301 horsepower that you'll find in every other V6 Camry of this generation, which is tied to the front wheels via just a standard automatic transmission, as you'd expect. When it comes down to performance, there are only a couple things on the Camry TRD, namely upgraded brakes, an upgraded suspension, and an upgraded exhaust. That's about it. So when you look at this car and you look at this ground effects kit, which yes is factory, and then you consider the modifications done by Toyota, it's sort of like an in-house ricer build job. All they did was concentrate on lowering it, making it louder, and putting a ridiculous ground effects kit on it to make what is the only car that comes from a sensible automaker looking like some 16-year-old inherited it from his grandmother and tuned it to show off for his friends. This is how this car came from the factory, excluding those window louvers on the back doors. Given how this car looks overall, they honestly fit on this car totally fine. So once again, there's no real performance changes to this car other than a couple little things and this ridiculous ground effects kit, not to mention that rear wing on the back, which has never been put on a Camry before. Doesn't look like it was put there by the factory, that's for sure, but it was, let me tell you. And there is still yet another level of crazy that Toyota achieved because they did this TRD treatment to the Avalon. You know, Grandpa John's Avalon, the one that he takes to and from bingo every Saturday night. Yeah, they did that to the Avalon too and made the Avalon TRD. Safe to say, neither the Camry or Avalon TRD were sales successes, but the Camry sold a little bit more because the smaller Camry lends a bit better to a whole ricer build from the factory idea than the larger Avalon did. So Avalon TRDs you basically never see. Camry TRDs you still basically never see. They're ridiculous, but this one's here, and let's take a review type tour of it. Here's another angle of the Camry TRD, and here is another angle of this ridiculous rear wing, which isn't the most insane rear wing I've ever seen on a car, but seeing this on the back of any old front-wheel drive Camry would make anybody believe, ah, that's some 16-year-old high school student whose parents bought him this car and now he put that wing on and a straight pipe and he's gonna go terrorize society with it. No, again, it's from the factory. This whole thing is real. You are not dreaming. Again, doing a sporty appearance package on a regular sedan is nothing crazy or new. It's just the execution of it on the Camry and the Avalon TRD was a little bit strange, and it seemed to come out of absolutely nowhere. Also, seeing the TRD name on the back of a Camry or an Avalon is a little bit strange because lately the Toyota Racing Development, that's what TRD stands for, they've been putting their names on more sort of off-roady vehicles. Think the Tacoma TRD Off-Road that I reviewed about 6 or 7 months ago, or things like the 4Runner or Sequoia TRD Pro. The TRD nameplate in the past 10-15 years has lent itself more to a sort of off-road performance ethos rather than an on-road performance ethos. That on-road performance ethos was adopted by Gazoo Racing, which has put their name on the GR86, the GR Supra, and the GR Corolla. So if they did another sporty package on the Camry, it would likely be called something like the GR Camry or the Camry GR Sport. So with that being said, let's move on to practicality, and we're gonna get into all the boring Camry parts of this video. This is just a Camry trunk with Camry TRD floor mats, fellas. Anybody? No, just I'm the only one excited about that? Okay. Well, we've got these beautiful, they've got red surrounds on them. God, that's great. But I look inside and I see basically just a trunk area. It's quite wide, it's nice and deep, it's got enough room for your shopping or your luggage for all your passengers. First and foremost, this thing is a Camry, folks, so it's supposed to be used every day, 365 days a year for 250,000 miles until you sell it to some sketchy person on Craigslist for $1,800, which is definitely the fate of this Camry right here. But while it's still nice and new, let's hop inside and have a look at the interior. Let's check out rear seat room first. Now, if you're an Uber driver, this is going to be very important because, again, this is a Camry. And can you imagine the excitement of ordering an Uber or a Lyft, and then it says Ricardo is arriving in a Camry TRD? That would get me going for sure. So, sitting inside, this seat right here is moved pretty much all the way back where I would sit if I was sitting up front. I'm 6'3", so I'm quite tall. I've got just enough room back here. My knees are almost touching. I can feel my leg hairs touching the seat, actually. I've got enough foot room down there and enough headroom. Again, it's a Camry, the quintessential mid-size sedan, so it needs to have room for people in the back because, again, Uber drivers use these things, families use these things. They're just used by everybody, and people are going to be sitting in the back here. I'm kind of rambling on, but let's have a look at these Camry TRD specific red seatbelts. You think your Porsche 911 GT3 RS is cool because you've got individually painted seatbelts? Think again. I got it on my Camry, my guy. Red seatbelts isn't the only interior change for the TRD. You'll also get this red contrast stitching and red piping in the seats, this red styling element in the center. It's sort of like a half fake leather, half cloth sort of seat. There's black and red back here to remind your rear seat passengers that they are in the sporty, cool, high-performance Camry that isn't actually any more powerful than the regular Camry. But it's cooler looking for some people. Pretty basic back here. There's not that much to talk about. There is a transmission hump in the center because this generation Camry was available with all-wheel drive. It's not super bad, but it's something. In terms of amenities, I have two. I have two USB-A outlets right here, and then I have a little storage tray. Nothing special, and some pockets in the seats, I guess. So yeah, with that being said, let's hop up front. Again, you have the same red stitching on the seats and on the dashboard, but you also get TRD badges stenciled into the headrest right there. Not something that you see in the back, but if you're up here, you can look at those and remind yourself that you're in that weird, obscure, sporty version of the Camry. And you also have a little TRD badge right here on the shift lever, as well as red gauges over in the gauge cluster right there. Basically the same exact gauge cluster as in a regular Camry. You've got a little screen in the middle that'll show you various bits of information, which is nice and helpful. And you have analog gauges flanking it. And in the TRD, they are red to remind you that you're in the sporty version of the Camry. Another way to remind yourself is the red stitching on the rim of the steering wheel as well. Just a basic, regular, leather-wrapped Camry steering wheel just has some red stitching. And the last thing that'll remind you you're in the special version of the Camry is the aluminum pedals down in the footwell area on the driver's side, which look nice and sporty. I think when it comes to interior things, they did a pretty good job making this feel just a little bit more sporty than the regular Camry, but not excessively so. And they also didn't spend a whole lot of money developing a crazy looking sporty interior. For instance, you have just basic regular Camry seats right here. There's not that much support or side bolstering in the seats for track use or anything like that. They're just Camry seats with a little bit of extra red stitching and, again, those TRD logos in the headrest to make it seem a little bit more special, but it doesn't take away from the Camry-ness of this car, which is boring, reliable, useful, everyday transportation. This just has a little bit of extra spice to it. It's like when you're eating frosted mini wheats, right? And then you get that one that has twice the sugar of all the others in the box, you know what I'm saying? That's the Camry TRD Pro. All the regular mini wheats are all the regular Camrys, the hybrids, the all-wheel drive models, and then you get that one with twice the sugar, twice the frosting, and that's the TRD Pro. Just a little bit more special enough to make you feel good. So with that being said, let's check out what improvements have been made to the engine, and then we'll take it for a drive. I say improvements to the engine, but once again, as I've said earlier, this 3.5 liter V6 that is shared with other V6 Camrys of the last generation of the V6 Camry has no performance improvements over every other V6. It's just the same old 3.5 liter unit, develops 301 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque, which it routes to the front wheels only through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Once again, all-wheel drive was available on the Camry in this generation, but only on the 4-cylinder models. There was no all-wheel drive offered with the V6 for God knows what reason. It has the most power, so I would expect it to get the option to have the most traction as well, but for some reason they decided that the V6 was more for long-distance cruising or something like that, and having all-wheel drive wasn't necessary to Toyota for this. Nothing really special underneath the hood. What's special about it is the suspension tuning, the brakes, and that exhaust, which sounds like this. But the main thing is the cosmetic changes, the appearance, the look of this car, which is the reason why I'm kind of making fun of it, because it's just a little bit odd. But that being said, let's take this car out for a drive. Out on the road in the Camry TRD, which is an honor. I've been ripping into this car a little bit, making jokes about it, but I have to say, overall, I just love when cars like this come out, because it seems these days like everyone's driving around in some white, silver, gray, autonomous electric hybrid, plug-in hybrid pod that has no personality to it, that you know was designed by some committee, and everyone in it they hate cars, they despise cars, they find more interest in their food blender than the car that they take to work every day. If they even do that, they all take the bus. So when something comes along, completely left field, bizarre, weird, makes no sense, and then it's a total sales flop, I can't get enough of cars like that. Cars like the Mini Paceman John Cooper Works, or the Mazda MX-30 with the rotary powered range extender motor. I could go on and on, but those are the cars that I think gives this channel, this YouTube channel, its meaning. I love filming videos with cars, but the cars that get me the most excited are the stupid ones that make absolutely no sense. That's why I filmed the BMW i3. That's why I filmed the Defender 90 V8. Just totally left field, bizarre vehicles where you think, what was the boardroom on when they decided to approve that? The Camry TRD on paper is nothing special or crazy. It's a sport package of the regular Camry with some suspension upgrades, an exhaust upgrade, and brake upgrades. That's something that you see all the time. For instance, BMW will sell you an M Sport version of a 228i xDrive. Audi will sell you an S-Line A4 or something like that. But the way they did it like this, where they made it look like some 16-year-old kid modded his mom's Toyota Camry, was pretty weird. The styling is really weird, and then you add the TRD name to it, which to me, TRD means off-road packages for 4Runners and Tacomas. It does not mean lowering a Camry or an Avalon, for Pete's sake, and putting ground effects kits on it and what looks like an eBay wing on the back. Just weird, really weird. And it's safe to say, and easy to understand, that these things didn't sell very well, because people looking for a Camry want something sensible that's going to get them to work, that's going to do all the errands for them and never break down. But it doesn't really have that much personality. That's what the Camry does. This one's a little bit different. And I gotta say, the exhaust sounds a little bit nicer than a regular V6 Camry, but not enough to really matter for anything. You hear a little bit more of the exhaust just in regular driving. Like right now, if I kind of feather the throttle, I can hear a little bit of that exhaust note. And it's not annoying, it's not like it's a drone or anything. You just hear the exhaust a little bit more in this car, just subtly, which I think is nice. I think they did a good job with the subtlety of the performance modifications on this car and the interior upgrades. But just the look of the outside of this thing is crazy bizarre. And now when it comes to regular Camry stuff, the driving experience, it's excellent as a daily driver. It's nice and quiet. It's very comfortable. I imagine it's great on gas and it's reliable. And this V6 engine has plenty of poke to it. Again, 300 horsepower for a Camry is nothing to sneeze at. And then you remind yourself that it's sending 300 horsepower from its V6 to the front wheels, which is interesting. But the V6 Camry was never meant for performance. It was meant to be sort of a more long-distance cruiser, something a little bit less stress than a regular four-cylinder Camry. And this was the end. The V6 Camry died with the TRD swan song, and I'm sure everybody was really upset about that. I know I was. I lost sleep. I cried into my pillow every night. Wait, no, I didn't. I didn't care. But the point is, this is the last V6 Camry, and it's not coming back. But if I had to tell you the one Camry that I wanted, the coolest Camry of them all, the Camry station wagon from the mid-1990s with the dual rear wipers on the back window. If you want a cool Camry, if you want a Camry that people respect at Cars and Coffee, don't bother with the TRD. Camry wagon, and get it with a manual and the V6, which might have been possible. I have no clue. Before we wrap up the video, if there's anybody still watching at this point, I'm going to get this thing out on the road and I'm going to floor it. And we're going to see if that does anything for me. But again, it's 300 horsepower to the front wheels, 8-speed automatic, knock it into manual mode, left shift pedal, and let's hit it. Yeah, no, that didn't feel like 300 horsepower. That felt more like 200 horsepower. It had a good pickup in first gear, and then it shifted into second, and then the power delivery just sort of died. It's a Camry in the way it drives. It's a Camry in the way that it responds when you put your foot down. And it's basically just a Camry for people that want something a little bit left field, a little bit sporty looking. The divorced dad that wants to look cool when he takes his kids to the zoo, that's what he's gonna buy, a TRD Camry. But again, I love these weird, bizarre vehicles because they pepper the automotive landscape every once in a while, and it just makes you feel good about life, that we're still getting just ridiculous stuff like this TRD. So that being said, I'm gonna end that video there. Like, subscribe, do all the normal YouTube stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.